Hello, and welcome to the Designing with Love podcast. I am your host, Jackie Pellegrin, where my goal is to bring you information, tips, and tricks as an instructional designer. Hello, instructional designers and educators. Welcome to episode 142 of the Designing with Love podcast. I'm thrilled to have Naomi Allen with me today. Naomi has completed her master's program in instructional design at Grand Canyon University. Welcome to the show, Naomi.
Hey, everyone.
Nice to have you on today. So to start, Naomi, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and share what inspired you to focus on the instructional design field?
Yeah, definitely. I would love to. So I did just complete my master's program and winding the clock back a little bit to when I started. I originally actually was in a master's program for clinical mental health counseling. And that is kind of what my goal was at the time, career-wise. I had graduated with a degree in psychology and wanted to continue through to become a counselor, a therapist. As I was going through the program, I was also working in higher education and was really falling in love just with the field of education and equipping our students with, the skills that they would then take into the workforce and be able to impact so many different spheres with. And so I was starting to realize, hey, I do really enjoy the space of education and I want to have that impact. But I'm thinking instead of going through the counseling pathway, maybe staying more in the education side. When I was researching programs, I went through the curriculum for instructional design, and I was absolutely loving how the first, few courses really target the science behind learning. So you have your brain-based learning class, you're learning about how the different structures in our brain work and how retention happens, all of that good stuff. And then you kind of move and transition more into the systems side, where you're learning how to actually build the systems that we will then use to have the learning occur. So loved kind of seeing those two tag team and realizing that I could stay in the field of education, but still kind of have some of those psychologically founded, like the basis for that. So that was kind of part of my thought process. Did a little bit of research, talked to a couple people in the field, and realized that ultimately that was going to be a good switch for me. So did make that switch and have just kind of been off to the races since.
Wow, that's exciting. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Definitely.
Great.
So that was kind of a little bit of the thought process behind switching over to instructional design. But I also had the opportunity to work for our learning and development team here at GCE. So that's been a position I've really enjoyed and kind of gotten to work alongside some of the things I'm learning in my program, pulling all those gold nuggets and then doing some of that at work, using the different systems I've learned or theories that we've gone over in the field of learning and development as I'm developing some different content for training, actually giving the training, all of that good stuff, designing assessments, things like that. So I've really loved it. And it's something that my dad did, and I've kind of also gotten to see him be a part of that firsthand. So have just really enjoyed the field, and I'm newer to it, but really loving it so far. Glad to have finished the program too.
Yes, that's exciting. I love that. It sounds like you and I had, Naomi, a similar epiphany when it came to, becoming an instructional designer and coming into this field, because that was kind of how it happened for me. I had gotten my master's in business administration. I thought I was going to go into marketing and business administration, and I have used those degrees. But at the same time, I was like, I feel like there was something missing. Like I had a hunger for something else. And then same thing, when I came across the master's program at Walden, when I was working there, I was like, started reading all the classes and the course descriptions. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. I love this. Where has this been all my life? I didn't know that instructional design was actually a thing. What is this? Right.
Yeah.
And then same thing, I think you and I both have that similar experience where you start reading the courses and you're like, wow, that's just like, it strikes a chord and it's like light bulb moment, right? It's like, wow,
Totally.
epiphany. Like, this is what I'm meant to do. I even remember saying out loud, and people heard me say it because I said out loud, I said, this is what I've always wanted to do. I just didn't know there was a name for it.
Yeah,
So,
I totally agree. And it's so funny because I'll tell people, oh, I'm finishing my degree. And of course, everyone's like, oh, well, what in? And I'm like, instructional design. And I usually get that face of like, I recognize those words, but maybe not together.
Right.
And so then getting to explain it and what that looks like, what we as instructional designers do can look like, it's really fun to see that light bulb moment for some of them where they're like, oh, wow, that's really cool, or something I might be interested in maybe. And it's really fun as well to see the different areas that you can kind of be a part of in the field. I think that's something I really, really enjoyed through the program was getting to interact with students. And it's a decently small program. So I had a lot of the same students kind of in my cohort, I guess you could say, who are working through the same classes at the same time. But they might have been, actively being teachers across different, parts of the lifespan. So we had some with the littles, some with high schoolers, things like that. We had some who were, working more on the corporate side, like I was, and some who were not quite in the field, but using the master's program to kind of work their way in. So it was just really cool to see the different ways that we were using this and how the content in the methodologies that we were learning could be applied in so many different things. So it's been really cool to see that.
Right, exactly. It's great when you can advocate for the profession in so many ways. And this podcast is one way to do that, to advocate for the profession and really help people understand what instructional designers do. Because I go on podcasts so many times, Naomi, and the host will be like, so what exactly does instructional designers, what exactly do they do? What don't
we do?
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, yeah, we do a lot. And it's so funny when I tell them that it's been around since World War II during, the time of training the soldiers and everything. They're like, really? It's been around that long? And I'm like, yeah, it has a deep history since the 1940s. And yet there's so many people that just don't know about it or know exactly what it is. They may have, like you said, they may have heard of it, but not the two terms put together, like instructional design. Oh, what is that? What do you do? So it's really interesting to kind of get the word out there and advocate for it. So it's great when we can do that. We can be the voice for the profession and get other people interested in it too. So I like that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I love that. So in your recent master's degree work at GCU, you focus so much on that those innovative strategies like microlearning and scenario-based learning, which I absolutely love. I think that's the wave of the future. It's already here actually, but I think more and more scenario-based learning is being designed for curriculum, right? And for training. Yeah. So yes. Can you give an example of how you use microlearning or scenario-based learning in your work and what impact did that have on the learners that you designed it for? Hello, I have some exciting news to share with all of my listeners. There is a feature called Fan Mail. What this allows you to do is send me a text message anytime during the episode. There's a link located at the top of the description in each episode, and it says send Jackie a text message. So when you click on that link, you'll be able to send me a message letting me know what you thought about the episode and if you have any ideas for future episode content as well. I look forward to seeing your text messages. Thank you.
Yeah, totally. Well, I 100% agree that scenario-based learning, micro-learning, gamification, all of that good stuff, those are all such common themes and ways to design effectively. And I would say that specifically for me, I'm working mainly with all adult learners. So even more so with that population, right? We want to be having things that are hands-on. They're practicing and applying the different scenarios, the different, pieces of content in a way that is very relevant to keep them engaged and focused and make sure that that's retained.
Right.
So I would say one of the things that I worked on across a couple different classes, but it was also actively something I was doing in my job, was a nursing kind of development day presentation. So I went through and was able to kind of chunk some different content and then have all these different versions of like a role play scenario. Because this was a in-person training over the course of 4 hours, where I got a group of counselors and was able to kind of work with them through some content.
Wow.
And I would say that when you have meaty content like the nuances of a nursing program and all the requirements and things that come alongside that, really breaking that down into smaller, more manageable bits and then practicing it helps make sure that it stays relevant. There's not really as many misconceptions, because if there are, you'll catch them in that role play. So that was really helpful, I would say, for us to do. Nice. Throughout my program as well, I rebuilt that specific program over the course of a few classes. But I also got the opportunity to create a few different e-learning modules. So these were not instructor-led. So it was a little bit more, I don't know, it was a little bit different to create some of those moments for that hands-on learning or those scenario-based settings. So that might have looked more like an open-ended response, or even in my class through the discussion boards and posts, if you're creating a full course shell instead of just one module. You can use some of those different strategies to kind of promote, the class kind of chatting through how they're using these things, giving scenarios and saying, hey, what would we do with these different pieces? And as long as there's a good amount of engagement there, it's really cool to see that can work just as well as, something where you're actively in a classroom, having people role play through different settings.
Wow, that's great. I love that. Yeah, I agree. Scenario-based learning is so powerful, right? Because you can really put those individuals in the moment, right? And then they know that they can take that of what they've learned in those scenarios and actually bring that to the job and apply it. So that's great. There's nothing better than that. I love it. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think what's so important is that the scenarios are super relevant, because I've seen it kind of go both ways, where sometimes if you're trying to not throw trainees in the deep end and give them more like small manageable bits, but they're not as relevant, it's kind of hard for that to stick, right? Because if you're not using it in the field, it's maybe not something that's going to be as relevant or something that you need to remember, versus, if you as a trainer have some experience and are able to say, hey, when I did this, here's exactly what I saw. Here's what you will see. It's a little bit different to give those more specific FAQ scenarios that they're going to actually experience. And that way, when we're practicing, it's kind of just a dress rehearsal for exactly what they'll see in the field. So I've seen that be equally as important as just getting a lot of scenario-based learning in, is making sure that all the scenarios you're working with are very applicable to what those individuals are going to see on the day-to-day.
Yes, absolutely. And kind of a follow-up to that, because I know, the ADDIE model is all predominant throughout the program, right? Throughout the master's program, you actually get to work on each phase of the ADDIE model in the projects. And I love how this program is project based. You do some writing, but it's mainly reflection based, and I like that. So there's not really many papers, if any. There's a couple, right? So it's very project based, which I love. So were you able to find that you were able to utilize the ADDIE model and see it through to fruition in the job that you do now? And how impactful was that to be able to actually see it in action with each phase of that model?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I feel like when you're in the program, right, in those first classes that mention ADDIE, you really look at it as really distinct different parts. And so it's really helpful to learn how to use the methodology to have that happen. this is just me speaking from my experience, but what I've seen so far is that it's a much more fluid process when you're in the job. And when there's a lot of different iterations, or you're working, cross-functionally, so there's other departments that have says, or you're getting things approved by SMEs, or timelines are off, that isn't as clean cut as it is when you're studying it.
Right.
So I think it was really a interesting learning curve to see that work in the field and see how it can make a lot of the things that you might be naturally doing a little bit smoother, a little bit more effective. But definitely for anyone who is coming out of the program or expecting, to be able to fit every stage into a neat box, that wasn't my experience going through from that.
That's true. It can be a little bit messy sometimes because we know that nothing is going to go right as smoothly as we hope it will. I mean, we hope, yes, it goes smoothly, but yeah, you're right. There's always going to be scope creep that's going to come into play, or like you said, delays in certain things and things that are out of our control that we just have to go, okay, let's pivot. Let's change here and let's see what we can do. Yeah, so that's totally true. Absolutely. Did you find yourself using any other models like because I've used Addy in my 15 years as being an instructional designer the most, but and I think, sometimes I use a combination of Addy and Sam because we do the iterative development and curriculum design and development department. But have you noticed that you've used like a combination of maybe Sam and Addy or rapid development or something like that? And have you found that really helpful when you can be able to have different models that you can use together? Do you find that helpful?
Yeah, I would say that is typically how it goes, is kind of a mix of a few different models. I would say also for a lot of my projects that I created, a lot of times we would work backwards. And so that was something that was kind of interesting to, there's a model for that, but working Addy into that has been kind of interesting to see. So you just are looking at it, it feels upside down a little bit from what you do in the program to when you kind of know, okay, we're starting with our stakeholder meetings so that we know what the goal of this training is, but then we have to flesh it out, right? Backwards. So that's kind of how I'm seeing some of the different projects that I work on in the field is, hey, here's kind of the end goal. This is what leadership wants this group of employees to be able to produce, whatever that might be. So now we have to go work backwards and make sure that we can get our employees from here all the way over to here, because that's the ultimate goal of training. Right. So instead of, starting and kind of building up and seeing, where that takes us, it's like you have the end goal. And so you're building or back from that. So I think that's been one interesting way that I've kind of seen things look a little bit different, but that's also, I think, what's really stretched and grown me as an instructional designer.
Yes, being able to utilize that backward design. Sometimes we use that too in curriculum because we find that if the SMEs are having a really hard time trying to figure out and articulate things, like they know the content, but they don't know how to bring it into fruition, right? They don't know how to to be able to say, okay, here's what I want them to know, but I don't know how to get it into an assignment. So sometimes we'll take a step back and we'll say, okay, well then rather than looking at topic titles and objectives, let's work backwards, like you said, and let's see what's the end goal. What do you want the students to get out of this course, right? And then work your way backwards. Yeah, I like that. That's a great option. So I think as you build up your skills as an instructional designer, this is great for all of the listeners out there, is that you can try those different models and theories. And if one doesn't work, that's okay. You can try something else. And that's the beauty of this field, right? Is that you can try things and it's okay. If it doesn't work the first time, you just try something else and that's okay. Right.
Yeah, totally. And every project is so unique and brings its unique challenges and timelines and things. And so I think that is the beauty of having so many different models to choose from, is you might think you know what the best way to go about building a training or a curriculum or whatever it is that you're making. But it might just be more of a practical decision, even of like, okay, well, what can I physically allocate time-wise, and things like that. And so maybe you're choosing a different model because of that. But definitely something I am very excited to continue growing on. I will, keep moving through a few of the different ones that we got to take a look at through the program, and continue to not only build those into my assignments, but also into my work.
Wow, that's great. I love that, Naomi. So as we wrap up, what are some tips and advice you can share with those who are looking to complete a master's program in instructional design like you did recently?
Yeah, I would say definitely do your research ahead of time. Look through the courses. If, like we did, you start to really fall in love with the idea of what instructional design could mean and what a career in instructional design could mean. GCU's program was a really, really great way for me to kind of have that entry point. And I didn't start out working in learning and development when I started my program. I was working for the College of Nursing, doing enrollment support, so program development. And as I moved through my program and then transitioned into this role, it was really cool to see how everything I learned was then in turn being used in the workforce. So I would say it's a great entry point if you have no idea, about instructional design and just want to learn more, kind of get into the field. That was kind of where I was. But also if you're working in the field and you want to learn more about the models and increase in your technology understanding, different platforms that you may not be quite aware of how to work, but want to. That was another really cool benefit of the program that I came out of. So there's a lot of different ways that I think the program could be very relevant and helpful. And if you're considering it, I would just say, get ready for some work, but it's great. And definitely was fun to have a lot more hands-on projects. You come out of the program with a portfolio and you're like, wow, I did that. That is so great to see all of the different projects I've gotten to work on. And you start thinking back to, where you were at when you completed them and how far you've come. So highly recommend it. And
Yeah, I love that. It's don't be afraid, right? Just as they say, just do it, right? And you'll find it's a great experience. I know it can be scary for some to go back and get a master's. I know for me, going back and getting a second, I was like, oh my goodness, do I really want to do this and go back? But yes. It's like you and I, we did it. We have no regrets, right? So I think for people listening, if you're on the fence, just kind of think about your why. I think that's so important, right? Because have a why, because then I know for me, I don't know if this happened to you, but there were times where I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. I started to doubt myself and I'm like, okay, I had to kind of regroup myself and go, okay, why am I doing this? And sometimes even my family and my friends would ask me, Jackie, why are you doing this? What's your why? I go back to it. And I'd be like, okay. Yeah. And I even wrote it down so I could actually physically read it and pick it up and go, okay, this is tangible here. This is this is my why. So I think whatever strategies help people to just keep pushing forward, right? When it gets tough, when they say the going gets tough, you just keep going. Yeah.
Yep. So. There you go.
Yeah. Because it's always going to be a challenge. Anytime you take on something new, it's going to be a challenge. But I think when you come out on the other side, you're better for it, right? Yes.
Totally. Yeah. And I think like anything, it's so daunting to start it. And then once you get in your groove, you start to realize, okay, even just practically, I do homework on these days and here's the days things are due and here's what I need to take care of by, the point in the week. And when your schedule and routine also kind of follows it, I felt like halfway through the program, and it did kind of take me a few months, but I got into my groove where it was very manageable for me to kind of stay on top of things. So even from a practical standpoint, I know a lot of people when considering the master's program, it's like, okay, well, we're working full time. So what does it look like to add more to our plate, right? There's so much on there already, but you will find a groove, but I will say, just with anything, give yourself grace. There's a learning curve to trying anything new. And I think sometimes there's a lot of pressure that we can put on ourselves to just get it right the first time, or not feel overwhelmed, or think, if we are feeling overwhelmed, is something wrong? Is this not for me? But sometimes that feeling just means that you're growing and stretching, and sometimes that is exactly what you said. What you got to do is just push through, keep going.
Right. I love that, Naomi. That's great. Wonderful. Oh, well, is there any last minute thoughts you wanted to include before we wrap up or anything?
I don't think so. If you're curious about the program, there's a ton of different ways for you to get information, but I know just coming and listening to the podcast, you'll get to hear from a lot of different people who are in the field, and maybe you resonate with some of their stories or what they're working on. And so it's a very broad field. And if you're interested, there's definitely probably a cool niche for you.
Right. I love that. Well, thank you so much, Naomi, for your insights today, and for being willing to come on the podcast, because I know it's not always easy to take that plunge, but it's really nice when you can inspire others. So all of your experiences in education and instructional design that you talked about they're definitely going to be inspired by that. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And
thank you.
Yeah, I'd love to have you back on sometime. Maybe, when you feel like you're kind of in the field a little longer, and if you want to come back on and talk about your experiences, maybe 6 months out or something like that, feel free to reach out to me and we can arrange something.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll ramp up some cool projects. Keep you guys on your toes.
I love it. Wonderful. Well, thanks again, and I look forward to having you back.
All righty. Bye.
Thanks. Thank you for taking some time to listen to this podcast episode today. Your support means the world to me. If you'd like to help keep the podcast going, you can share it with a friend or colleague, leave a heartfelt review, or offer a monetary contribution. Every act of support, big or small, makes a difference, and I'm truly thankful for you.